I've always wondered what it means to live in the moment, or at least to achieve that state of being on a consistent basis. The reality is that I'm not very good at being present. The good news, though, is that both of my guests today have made a documentary that attempts to answer some of life's most challenging questions, including how we can tap into our own lives in the here and now. This is the 5 a.m. Miracle, episode number 369. Chasing the Present with James Sebastiano Jr. and Mark Waters. Good morning, I am Jeff Sanders, and this is the podcast dedicated to dominating your day before breakfast. My guests today are two filmmakers whose latest documentary, Chasing the Present, is a fascinating deep dive into introspection, self-awareness, and a lot of meditation. James Sebastiano Jr. is the subject and producer of the film, and Mark Waters is the director. And now, here's my interview with James and Mark. So let's just begin today with the story behind the film, Chasing the Present, which is an excellent movie. I watched it recently, and there's a lot to dig into with this movie. So I want to just start with the story itself of what was the impetus for wanting to make this film.
Well, it started out I mean, it's always funny, people always ask this question, and every time someone asks it, I get confused and I don't know where to start. It's like, do I start when I was 3? Do I start when I was 5? Do I start, where do I start in my life? But I guess a good place to start is just right before the film started. And, personally, I was struggling a lot in my life, and I woke up one day with some free time. I just finished a project that I was working on, and I just woke up with this kind of burning sensation in myself that I needed to make a film with Mark. And so I messaged him. I said, "Hey, Mark, I don't know what this is, but I have this really strong feeling that we need to make a film together." And Mark said, "Okay, what about?" And I was like, I don't know that part yet. I just know we need to do it." And he said, "Okay, cool. I'm in." And he came to Bali, where I was living at the time, and we started brainstorming on, ideas for what the film could potentially be about. And we started kind of looking around and making a short list of people that maybe we could have as the main character in the film, because at that time it wasn't the idea that I would even be in the film. I was just going to work with Mark to make it and put it together. But shortly after that, a couple months, say maybe 1 or 2 months down the road, I was really struggling, and I was going through panic attacks, and I was super stressed out and disconnected, and just overwhelmed with the amount of work and the amount of projects that I was taking on. And I think, we looked at each other, and Mark said, "Hey, what about you? Would you do this? Would you be willing to be the guy, who's in the film and who looks into his stuff, like, for real? Would you really be able to go deep and do this?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I would." And then, we kind of flipped the script in terms of just solely wanting to make a film that would help other people, to trying to understand the mental suffering that we were going through, or that, specifically that I was going through, and just show that in a real authentic way, with the hopes that if we were able to do that, that maybe it would inspire other people to want to look at their own life and see how they could possibly grow as well.
Yeah, in terms of, I guess, the mental suffering you mentioned, the panic attacks. I mean, I discussed on my podcast before that I had a series of panic attacks that sent me to the ER. And so I've been down a similar road to a certain degree. And so I'm just curious for you, like, what do you think was, like, the cause of the anxiety? Or what do you think was really, like, the issue you were trying to solve?
It's really hard to know what the cause of anxiety is, because there's so many things that happen. I have a degree in psychology, and I'm at the moment studying further, working a master's in that and stuff like that. And there's so many things that could have happened in my childhood, when I was small. And also, of course, when I was, 15, I got stung by a wasp, and my heart stopped, and I had to go to the emergency room, and they gave me an adrenaline needle. That was actually, like, after that happened, I really felt anxiety come in my life in a big way. And that was when I was about 15. So I think whether that was the sole thing, or whether that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, I don't really know. But it was, when I look back on it, I always think of, like, I really started having these panic attacks when I was like 15 or 16 years old. So for me, that was the main catalyzing event, I think.
So in the movie, with this there's a lot that you discuss in the film in terms of trying to kind of go through a process to work through like what's happening and how do we address it. Like, what do you think has been helpful for you over the years in terms of dealing with anxiety directly, or in terms of healthy habits, or what do you think has been kind of an effective protocol to get to a healthier place?
Well, for me personally, and Mark can speak on that as well because his life was also really, really improved through through the making of this film. But for me, personally, meditation is such a huge thing. Meditation, and in the film we touch on self-inquiry, and we also did ayahuasca, and we did so many things. So again, it's really hard to say like this one thing, helped me with my anxiety, but it's more of a holistic approach. But what I can say is that, prior to, even during the filmmaking process, halfway through the filmmaking process, I was still having panic attacks regularly. And, Mark was there with me in the car when he saw that I couldn't even drive and I had to lay down in the back seat of the car because it was just like I couldn't even look out the window in the car. I remember at one point I was laying down in the back seat, just like really losing it. And that was just before we went to Peru to do the ayahuasca. But what I can say is when I look back on it, and in my daily practice that I have going at the moment, meditation is really key, and self-inquiry, and just even a basic meditation is super key, because for me meditation allowed me to have distance from my thoughts. And I think that's such a powerful thing, and it really, really helped me so much with my anxiety, because it helped me realize that I'm more than my thoughts, that I'm not just my thoughts. And for me, anxiety was a very physical thing. So I would feel it in my body. My chest would go numb, my face would go numb, my heart would race, I'd have a hard time breathing. And then my mind would come in somewhere in that process and start saying, oh my God, what's happening? Am I going to die? Blah, 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 blah. And if I was completely identified with my thoughts, it would turn into a panic attack. But once I realized that I'm more than that I'm more than just my thoughts, I kind of developed the ability to be able to watch that. And then all of a sudden, it's like, wait a second, I'm not my thoughts. What are these things? And then I started to watch that. And the more and more I connected from that place of the witness, the less and less the anxiety had hold over me.
Well, that's powerful. And Mark, what about your experience?
Yeah, I think just to add to what James is talking about, I think the thing with the thoughts is really kind of looking at what they are. And when you start to kind of go down a road of self-inquiry and you really start looking into the mechanics of your mind, you start to see that your thoughts are really just beliefs, stories that have been sort of laid into you throughout your life. They're not necessarily things that were given to you since birth. They've just sort of built up throughout the years. And we begin to identify with those stories and we believe in the stories. So it's really, really about, we really believe the thoughts that are going on in our head. But when you can actually see them for what they are, it really changes the relationship that you have with them. When you see they're not yours, you didn't just like come up with these thoughts on your own. We're affected by so many different elements in our life, whether it be our culture or our families or whatever. But these thoughts are just like a big combination of the life that's really happened to us since birth. So I think really changing the relationship that we have with the thoughts rather than identifying with them is such a powerful part of the process. And again, like James mentioned, for me throughout this process, the one thing really that had a mega shift on me was self-inquiry, and really looking at what's really going on in the mind and kind of seeing these types of things. And self-inquiry in its own, it really has a way to provide you with a deep recognition that really changes everything about the way you see the world, because you don't see yourself as this package of thoughts and sensations. And we have these personalities which have just grown throughout the year, but they're always changing. But there was something there that was essential before this personality came into shape. So I think when we can break the limitations that we have of these personalities that have become so fixed, we really become more fluid with life. And we kind of tune into the natural flow as opposed to be so rigidly sort of attached to, our likes and our dislikes and our needs for things to be going a certain way.
So when you say self-inquiry, both of you mentioned this now, and I'm curious, like, are you talking about specifically just looking into yourself to ask, like, why do I feel these feelings, or how do I get beyond this, or what kind of process are you going through, like, to learn more about yourself?
I mean, self-inquiry in its tradition is really about looking for the I, the I that's at the root of all of our thoughts. Because, every thought we have, there's an I there, like I am hungry, I am tired, I am this, I'm that. But instead of really putting much focus onto the I, we put the focus onto the actual I am the thought. The focus is always on on the, on the thing. So this really looks directly at what this I is, what it's made of. And it's really an inquiry to see really what that is, what's at the root of that I. But as a more, I guess, layered looking at self-inquiry, it really is, once you really start going down that road, it's just about everything, really about how the mind operates, really observing what's going on, our reactions, the feelings in the body, it's everything. It's really looking deeply at what's going on, because I think we can quite easily go our whole lives without even looking into those things. We get so caught up in the day to day, and in our own desires, that we really overlook the fundamental thing about ourselves, which actually makes life possible. So it's a very deep search, but it can be the most interesting exploration you can really embark on, and it has been for me. It really has been such an interesting, curious investigation. Just learning more about why we do the things we do, and is there ways that we can sort of break free from some of those negative aspects of those things.
Now, James, you mentioned meditation, and I like the idea behind wanting to spend more time kind of just thinking or trying to not think, whatever the process is. That's kind of my question. When you are meditating, what is the intention behind that practice? Like, what is there a specific way that you're trying to do it to like reduce anxiety, or what's the real kind of methodology behind the way you meditate?
There's so many different styles and approaches, and I think all of them have value in their own way. And if anybody ever asks me what kind of meditation is to do, I just say try as many as you can and just do the one that you like the most, because if we like it, we'll tend to stick with it. But for me personally, a lot of times I have a super active mind, and so I'll start off with a little bit of breathing, where for the first 5 minutes or so, I'll just breathe slowly. And as long as our exhales are longer than our inhales, our nervous system slows down and we just naturally become more calm. Our heart rate slows. So whether that be 2 seconds in and 4 seconds out, or 3 seconds in and 6 seconds out, or whatever, we start to slow down and begin more calm. Then after I'm done with that, after I'm done breathing, no, I don't stop breathing, but after I'm done with like focusing on that breathing technique, um, I just sit there and thoughts come up, and I just allow them to be there, and then they go away. And of course, sometimes thought comes up about, I don't know, what are you going to eat for dinner later? And then you play in that fantasy world of thought, right? And you're like, oh, I don't know, maybe I'm going to go here, or maybe I'm going to make this, or maybe I'm going to meet with Mark and go have dinner, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait, the thoughts got me, and then you just relax into it again. And you just sit there and just connect with yourself and allow the thoughts to come and allow the thoughts to go. And for me, that's basically the practice.
So what do you think that you gain from that practice? I mean, I know from my own experiences doing similar things, it does kind of slow down my mind. What are you trying to achieve when you meditate?
I don't sit down and try to achieve anything. It's more like, and if I had to put it into words, to answer your question, I guess I guess I'm trying to achieve a deeper connection with my ultimate self, with my true self, a deeper, realization of what I really am, and how it's helped me. Like you first asked, it's helped me completely with my anxiety, because that same process of when I was having a panic attack, my thoughts coming up and then me connecting with those thoughts and allowing myself to freak out is exactly what we train ourselves to do during meditation. We train ourselves how to deal with those moments. So for me, meditation is not just about the 5 minutes or 1 hour that I spend in the morning. It's about all the rest of the time as well, because that's the time where we really need it. When your partner does something that you might not agree with and you're just about to react, but you're able to watch that thought come up instead of react, then it's working. When you're about to have a panic attack and your mind is freaking out, like red alert, what's happening? Am I going to die? Blah, 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 blah. And instead of participating in that drama, being able to watch that drama arise and being able to watch it go away, because it does go away. It goes away just like clouds in the sky. They come and they pass and they leave. They don't stay there forever. And that's really, I think, for me, the key and what meditation has really done for me in my life.
And Mark, what about you? Do you also meditate?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a specific daily practice. It's in my tool bag for sure, but it's not necessarily something that I strictly do every day. But again, like James, trying to look at life more as if it's a meditation. As much as possible, be really just more aware of really what's going on, as opposed to being caught. Because I think really that has a lot to do with why we are feeling the way we are. From a psychological and mental health perspective, is that we've just gotten so trapped in our minds. So to be more consciously aware of what it is that we're doing, more consciously aware of what's happening around me, and inside of me as well. And it really just just being more aware of the beauty that's also unfolding around. Noticing the small things really brings that much more joy into my life. And but that's something that's always been there, really, is a deep love for the world and for nature. So I think, definitely through doing Chasing the Present, it's given me a deeper, it's kind of made that perspective deeper, even more consciously aware of what's going on. And I think that in itself is just really, it's a beautiful thing. And it's, I guess, essentially one of the key things with meditation is learning to really accept the natural flow of how things are, instead of needing it to be a certain way. Because when we really look at what's going on, we don't have much control. And especially seeing these moments of COVID, it's a perfect example of everything going sort of normal for a long period of time, and then all of a sudden everything shifts, and we didn't have any control over that. So being able to kind of slip back, and relax into life, as opposed to needing it to go your way all the time.
And now we'll pause here for just a moment to feature our amazing sponsors. Up first is Focus at Will. I use an amazing music service every day called Focus at Will. Focus at Will provides music tracks based on neuroscience. They're designed to make your brain focus. The human brain has evolved to respond to the human voice, which means that any music that sounds like a person singing or talking is inherently distracting. Focus at Will has crafted their own music designed to keep your brain focused on the work right in front of you. I use Focus at Will every single day because it works so well. And on their website, they have a great questionnaire designed to match your personality and preferences with the best style of focus music for you. To learn more about this great productivity-based music service and to begin your free 2-week trial, check out jeffsanders.com/focusatwill. That's jeffsanders.com/focusatwill. The 5 a.m. Miracle audiobook is available now on Audible, Amazon, and Apple Books. It is full of specific how-to advice and action steps to help you wake up early, dominate your day, and achieve your life's grandest goals. It's 4 hours of energy-packed audio that's read by me, and the audiobook walks you step by step through the 5 a.m. Blueprint, which is my 7-step productivity framework. Go to 5ambook.com to get your copy of the 5 a.m. Miracle audiobook today. Once again, that's 5ambook.com. That's powerful. You guys mentioned plant medicines earlier and ayahuasca, and I'm curious as to what role does that play in terms of, I guess, trying to understand yourselves better or trying to, recover from anxiety. Like, what role does something like ayahuasca play in all of this?
It depends on the person. Like, and I think the most important thing with ayahuasca is to realize that it is really a medicine. It's not a recreational drug that you hear about and your friends doing it on the weekend and oh yeah, I got nothing to do, so I'm gonna go try some ayahuasca. I really don't feel like it should be viewed like that. I really feel like it's a sacred medicine that's been passed down for generations and generations, and it should really be viewed like that. Like if you've tried all these other routes and nothing's working and you're still suffering and you really feel called to do it, then maybe it's worth researching and exploring. But I would say only under that circumstance. But for me, ayahuasca's biggest lesson was really to learn how to let go. And as Mark said, to accept things as they are, which is really similar to meditation. It's just like a full power, it's like meditation on steroids, you know what I mean? Where you're just like fully in this thing for hours and hours, and it's bringing up really, 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 for me anyway, very difficult moments where I had the opportunity to choose, do I fight this, what's happening right now, or do I just relax into it? And I had three, well, specifically one really, really, really hard experience, 1.5, before I was able to have that breakthrough and realize, like, I'm not in control. I can't control this thing. I really need to surrender and let go to it completely. And when I was able to do that, the whole experience changed and just became the most beautiful experience I've ever had. But it was because I was able to let go and surrender. So after that, I took that into my life, and it took me a year or two before I fully integrated that experience completely. And still, sometimes I have these insights that come up, and I'm like, oh, that was also something from the ayahuasca experience. But I think for me, the biggest lesson was really learning how to let go, learning how to just be fully accepting of what's happening in the moment.
So, are there other plant medicines that also have a similar effect, or is this just this one that has that kind of powerful, end result?
No, I think lots of plant medicines have this effect. I was reading a paper yesterday, like a scientific journal, about psilocybin and MDMA and all kinds of other drug-assisted therapy. LSD. Johns Hopkins just last year got the biggest grant ever for psychedelic research and healing depression, anxiety, and PTSD. So I think there's huge amounts of research being done at the moment to see if these things can actually be helpful. And one of the studies that I read was talking about people with PTSD who are taking medicine on a daily basis. After one dose of LSD done in a specific setting, with a doctor, blah blah blah, done all correctly, was able to take people off their medicine, like 80% of the people, for up to 6 months, and some of them didn't even need to do LSD again. So just one time, and I'm not recommending right now people go out and try plant medicines and stuff. I want to be clear, like when this was a really scientific study and it was done with doctors in a correct setting and all this kind of stuff, and all that stuff is very important. But I do think that that plant medicines can be a very powerful teacher. And it's also tricky because I know so many people who go down that road and then they end up taking plant medicines every weekend or once a month, and I don't feel like I needed it like in that way. I feel like I don't have a calling that I need to go back and do it again right now. Maybe someday I will, but I think in general, we have everything we need within ourselves, and we actually don't even need to do that stuff. But at the same time, it can be very helpful.
I think as well, like ayahuasca, it's such a non-conceptual thing, but trying to talk about it from a conceptual point of view, it's still very much in line with pretty much all of the traditions. So they're all kind of doing the same thing, which is really getting you to recognize your ego and transcend it. And ayahuasca has the power to really sort of do that in a very abstract way, where you sometimes can't really even explain really what your experience was like, but it has some sort of mega effect on your life, whether it's overnight or over a few years. But it's really, I think, one of the main things that really gets spoken about with ayahuasca is, the deeper experiences, having this deep realization that we are one thing, and it's like we've all, yeah, I mean, me in particular, I always like that idea, of like, oh, we're all one, we're all connected. It sounded like a nice story, and something that I felt. But I think through ayahuasca, it was like after that, it was like there's no questioning it. It's like a, for sure, like we're definitely one thing, and how that affects us moving forward is it really makes you look at everyone as yourself. So why would you want to hurt anyone else, or why would you want to compete in a negative way with somebody else, or when we can see ourselves in everyone and knowing that fundamentally we're the same, it really gives you a whole lot more compassion, empathy, and love. And it really, I mean, just that alone really has such a massive effect on the way we view the world and other people.
So in terms of the film's, I guess, main objective with the obviousness of the title, Chasing the Present, what do you think it means to live in the present or to be present? Is that the goal that you're shooting for, or is that something that only happens on occasion? Like, what does it mean to, I guess, to live like that, where the present moment really is meaningful?
This is something that's always been of interest for me, and that's it's been in all my projects and really been a deep part of my life for as far back as I can remember. And I think it really developed through spending a lot of time in nature as a kid and throughout my life. Like I'm a surfer, so I spent a lot of time in the ocean. And I don't know if that was it, but really it just gave me a good connection to that stuff. And I think, that term gets thrown around a lot these days, the importance of being present, and everyone's like, oh, I just need to be more present. But I think not many of us really understand what that is. But I think from my perspective, you can't not be present. You're always here. It's you can't escape the present. But it's just our thoughts that kind of get it's just our thoughts that really get lost in the past and the future. So when the mind goes quiet, all you really have is now. And the future is just a thought that arrives in the mind when you think, what am I going to do tomorrow? And or the past is, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Why did I do that thing yesterday? But it all arrives right here, right now. So there is nothing but the present in terms of our experience. So we can only be present, but it's really just learning to, like we've been talking about, just not be so immersed in those thought processes, which are so deeply connected to, the future and the past, because essentially those thoughts are really what cause so much anxiety. But when we can let go of it and really sort of sit back and be more in tune with what's happening now, those things seem to kind of like evolve naturally and more organically and more positively, as opposed to kind of like really being so concerned about needing things to be a certain way in the future. Rather just sort of like there's some sort of acceptance that has to happen, where you connect more with what's going on now, and then through that your future self really evolves in a way more I guess peaceful manner for lack of better expression.
And James, what about you in terms of the present moment? What does it mean to you?
It's a big, I think Mark nailed all the things that I was going to say. He's good at that. But I think, I just think of how we see it, and I can think of growing up, and I can think of many stories that I hear from other people where they're, maybe they're with their family and they're sitting at the table, and on some level that's being present, right? It's physically present. But there's something more to that, like when we're out with our friends and we're all just sitting on our phones with each other, like, yeah, we're there, kind of, but are we actually there? Are we actually being present? Or when we're sitting with someone and they're talking to us, but the whole time they're talking to us, we're thinking about what we're going to have for dinner or what we're going to do afterwards or what color their shirt is, or we're just not there. We're not in the moment with them, or at least it appears to be that way. So for me, there's they're synonymous, like love and presence, and there's so many other words as well that are synonymous with presence. But I really feel like that's what it's all about, is just this being here in this moment, accepting everything as it is. And if we're able to be in that space, it's medicine. It's pure love, it's pure medicine. I don't know of any other stronger, plants or practices, or I don't know of anything stronger than really fully being immersed in the present moment. And for me, learning how to do that, and of course, it's a practice, right? Like, we're present for a little while, and then something comes up, and then we're not present, and then we become present again. It's this game of coming back and forth, and that's why meditation is such a good training for that, because it's exactly what happens throughout the day. Being able to be in the moment is and learning how to be able to be in the moment is actually the whole purpose of living, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and I think it's also being present is just being yourself. It's being yourself, without, any of your other concerns. And I think, to kind of just put that into a nutshell, we've all felt it in many different ways. And some people feel it in nature. If you go out into the woods, or if you go to the ocean, you have those moments of just like, where you just feel totally content. There's nothing else that you need. You feel totally aware of what's going on, totally grateful. There's something that's happening. And I think we can all say in our lives we've experienced that, but it's actually having that in your day to day as well. So having that feeling, that experience in whatever you do. So whether it be working or sitting with your partner, having a meal, hanging out with your friends, it's that feeling of gratitude, that feeling of just being here, being present, or just being, really, just the beingness of life. And it's, I think because it's become such a big buzzword, we kind of feel like we need to do something else to do that, but it's right here all the time. We always have that opportunity to just be here and be grateful. And it is difficult, when we are anxious and we are depressed and we've got really hard, got lots of things going on. But if we can just find ways to kind of hack into that, whether it be, going for a run or doing some exercise or meditation or spending time outside, there's many ways to do it. But I think it's just finding what works for us to kind of hijack the moment with presence and learn how to be in that more often and how to integrate that into everything you do.
Yeah, I love that. That's fantastic stuff, guys. Is there anything else from the film you want to mention? I feel like we've hit some of the big rocks here, but is there anything else that you think that our listeners today should really hear about?
No, I just think I think we covered it all, really, and well, not all of it, but I think we covered a lot. And yeah, I just would love people to have the opportunity to see the film, and if they know anybody else that's struggling with any kind of mental health issues, if they feel inspired to do so, that they share it with others as well, and to really speak about things. One thing I learned from making this film is that by opening up and by being raw and by being authentic with my emotions, it really kind of, I don't want to say it in that way, but in a sense, it opened the door for others to be able to do the same thing. Every time we show the film, we have a group of people waiting to talk to us afterwards, and then they just openly share about their stuff, about their anxiety, about their depression, about their suicidal thoughts, whatever it may be. Because I feel like a lot of us don't feel like it's okay to talk about that. And maybe even more so for men. I'm really getting reached out to by a lot of men at the moment because, in the generation I grew up in, when I was small, it wasn't necessarily cool or okay for men to cry or to be able to feel their emotions or to be able to express what was going on. So I feel like we had a hard time doing that. And, if I was going to share anything, I would just say it's okay to share. It's important to share. It's 100% necessary to talk about what's going on inside of us. And it's 100% safe to do so as well, if you do it with someone that you feel safe with, or if you do it with a therapist or a family member that can actually sit there and be there for you while you're sharing. So yeah, I just think that's a really important thing that I've realized throughout the sharing of this film.
Yeah, and I think as well, it's I know how difficult how difficult things can get for all of us, and especially now we're going through a pretty wild time, with I guess there in America as well today with the elections, and what's the next 4 years gonna be like, and COVID and everything else is like, it seems like we're in a point at the moment where mental health is really sort of hitting the bottom, where a lot of people are really starting to feel it. And because of this, I think it is more difficult for us to actually find ways to just be here and be more present with what's going on. But I just really, from my own personal perspective, I just feel there's so much value in just finding ways to just really sort of get some sort of deeper way of experiencing life, because I think, for so many of us, we're just really touching the surface of what's possible. And there's just so much beauty, to be experienced in this world, and it's so easy to look past it. So yeah, I just think it's just such a shame to kind of miss out on the wonders of life. And yeah, that's just, talking from my own experience. And I'm not somebody that would like to pass on advice or feel like I know anything else than anyone else. All I can do is talk from my own perspective, and from that perspective really does look at the world as a very beautiful place to be in. And it just really, really changes everything.
Yeah, that's powerful stuff. I love it. So where can our listeners watch the film? How can they get access to it? Obviously, I want them to experience it as much as they can. So yeah, where should they go?
They can go to iTunes or Vimeo or Google Play, Vudu. There's a whole bunch of different platforms that it's on. You can also check our website, which is chasingthepresent.com, or you can check us out on Instagram. It's Chasing the Present Film.
Okay, perfect. I have all those links for our listeners this week in the show notes page. But Mark and James, this has been excellent. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I think this topic and all the ones you brought up today are very, very important topics. And so I'm really honored to talk to you guys today. I think it's a great film. I want everyone to watch it. I think it's wonderful. So yeah, thanks again for being on the show today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Jeff. It was really nice talking to you, man.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Jeff. Really appreciate it.
And for that action step this week, of course, see the film, Chasing the Present. I'm a huge fan of documentaries, especially those that not only tell a great story, but also that challenge me to grow at the same time. And Chasing the Present does both. So if you want to dig into yourself with more introspection and awareness, while also tapping into the power of living in the now, this is a must-see movie. For all the links discussed this week, go to the show notes page at jeffsanders.com/369. And that's all I've got for you here on the show this week. Until next time, you have the power to change your life. And the fun begins bright and early.